They always made me feel like an outsider. I used to believe that if I kept my head down and worked hard, my family would eventually see me for who I really was. Turns out they already had. They just didn't like what they saw. I'm Samantha. I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. Middle child. The quiet one. The one who always did what was expected. No arguments, no drama. My older brother, Dean, was the golden child. My younger sister, Haley, was the baby everyone adored. Me? I was the one who stayed behind to help Dad with his medications, the one who picked up groceries for Mom, the one who made sure bills were paid when things got tight. And still, they treated me like I was invisible. It all started unraveling a year ago when my father's health took a turn for the worse. I moved back into the house to care for him full-time. Dean couldn't be bothered. He was too busy running his real estate business in Chicago. Haley would drop in once a month, all smiles and selfies, then vanish. But I was the one who cleaned Dad's sheets. I was the one who made sure he didn't miss a single dose, and when he got too weak to speak, I was the one who sat beside him, just holding his hand. The night he passed away, I was alone with him. After the funeral, I remember standing in the kitchen while my mother, Dean, and Haley whispered in the living room like I didn't exist. That's when I felt it in my gut. Something was wrong. And then the will was read. I sat there in stunned silence as the lawyer read off every asset, every account, every piece of property, all of it going to Dean and Haley. Me? Nothing. Not even the bracelet I gave my father for Father's Day 3 years ago, the one he used to wear every single day. No one looked at me, no one explained, just awkward glances and silence. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, but in that moment something in me shifted. They thought I would just take it, walk away like I always did, but they forgot something. I kept everything. The receipts, the emails, the notes my father left me, the video recordings of our conversations, the signed document he gave me just weeks before he passed. They thought I was alone. They were so wrong. The will didn't match his words. After the shock of the will reading wore off, I started remembering the little things. Conversations I had with Dad when no one else was around. Things he said that didn't line up with what the will stated. Just a month before he passed, we were sitting on the porch watching the sunset, and he told me, "You know, Sam, I may not say it often, but I see everything you've done for this family. I made sure you're taken care of. You won't have to worry." At the time, I thought he meant emotionally. Spiritually, maybe. But now, I wasn't so sure. I went back to my apartment in Bloomington, trying to collect myself. My mom barely said goodbye when I left the house. Dean texted me some generic "hope you're okay" message. Haley didn't even bother. I knew if I didn't do something, they'd get away with it. And not just with the money, but with erasing everything I'd done. So I started digging. I pulled out the little fireproof lockbox I kept tucked away in my closet. Inside, I had handwritten notes from Dad, a copy of a power of attorney he signed when he was hospitalized, a printed email where he said he was updating the will soon, and, most importantly, a video I recorded, with his permission. He had asked me to film it. He said, "If anything ever goes sideways, I want you to have this." In the video, he was clear. If something happens to me before I finalize the documents with the attorney, I want Samantha to have the house and my savings account. Dean's got his own business, and Haley's never around. Sam's the one who's been here. I rewatched that clip 3 times before it hit me. The official will must have been changed after that video, or worse, never updated at all. And if that's the case, then someone had buried his last wishes. The more I thought about it, the more my mother's behavior after Dad died made sense. She got cagey whenever I asked questions. She wouldn't let me in the office where Dad kept his files. When I asked about the estate lawyer, she said, "Dean's handling all of that now, you don't need to worry." That's when the anger kicked in. They didn't just cut me out of the will. They erased me. But they underestimated one thing. I don't back down when something's not right. And I wasn't about to let my father's final wishes be tossed aside like they meant nothing. It was time to bring everything I had to the surface, and I knew exactly where to start. Have you ever felt something wasn't right, even when everyone told you to let it go? If this part hit close to home, drop a comment and let me know. Don't forget to subscribe for the rest of this story. Things are just getting started. Digging deeper and finding the first lie. I started with the law firm listed on the will, the one that supposedly handled everything after Dad passed. The firm's name was unfamiliar, but I found a contact number on the bottom corner of the printed copy Dean had so graciously handed me. The moment I called, red flags started waving. The receptionist answered and said, "I'm sorry, but we don't have any recent wills on file for a James Whitaker." That was my dad. I double-checked the name of the firm, the address, everything, just to be sure. Still nothing. I asked her, could it have been transferred to another lawyer, maybe someone in the same practice? She replied, "No, ma'am. We haven't handled anything for that name in over a decade." I sat there stunned. If this law firm had nothing on file, who actually drafted the will? I knew then that this version wasn't official. It couldn't be. Someone had typed it up, printed it, and passed it off like it was legitimate, and my gut told me exactly who that someone was. Dean. He always had a way of taking over situations and spinning them in his favor. The real estate guy. The smooth talker. The one who always managed to look polished and responsible when the rest of us were barely staying afloat. But he didn't know I had documentation. Legit documentation. I reached out to Dad's old lawyer, Mr. Callahan. A retired gentleman, mid-70s, kind voice, very detailed. He remembered my father immediately. "Oh, Samantha, yes. I remember your dad. I was helping him revise his estate plan before I retired," he said. I could feel my heart pounding. "Did he ever finalize it?" I asked, holding my breath. There was a pause. Then, "We were working on a new will. I even sent him a draft. He said he wanted to name you as primary beneficiary because you were the one caring for him. But he passed before he came in to sign the final version." My stomach sank, but also, something inside me flared with hope. "Do you still have that draft?" He said he did. He emailed it to me. And there it was, in black and white. My name, the house, the savings account, a section outlining why Dean and Haley were to receive less. It wasn't legally binding, but it was solid evidence of Dad's intentions. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was right. They had cut me out, but I had a paper trail that told a different story. And now it was time to confront the people who thought I'd just disappear quietly into the background, like I always had. The confrontation they didn't expect. It took me 2 days to build the file. I printed out Dad's handwritten notes, the email from his old attorney, and screenshots of our text messages. I transcribed the video he asked me to film, burned a copy onto a flash drive, and even included a certified copy of the power of attorney he signed in the hospital. I labeled everything, chronologically. If they wanted to play smart, I'd show them just how prepared I could be. I drove to my mother's house in Peoria early Saturday morning. I didn't tell her I was coming. When she opened the door, her eyes narrowed like I was some kind of salesperson. "What are you doing here, Samantha?" she asked, folding her arms. No hug, no warmth, just that same cold wall I'd always felt from her. "I need to talk to you and Dean and Haley." She rolled her eyes. "This again? Haven't we been over this? Your father's will is clear." I didn't flinch. "No, it's not, and I have proof." That got her attention. She didn't let me in right away, but after a few tense moments, she stepped aside. Dean was already in the living room, sipping coffee like he hadn't a care in the world. Haley sat cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, like this was all beneath her. "Look, Sam," Dean said with that fake calm voice he always used when he wanted to sound superior. "I get it. You're upset. But Dad made his decision. It's time you moved on. I dropped the file on the coffee table. Then explain this, I said, flipping open the folder. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I walked them through it all. The video of Dad stating his wishes. The draft will, the old lawyer's email. Their faces shifted from smugness to discomfort, then to outright panic. Haley finally spoke. This doesn't mean anything. It's not signed. I looked at her dead in the eyes. But it shows intent, and in probate court that matters. Especially when paired with a forged or fraudulent document. Dean's jaw clenched. You're bluffing. I slid the flash drive across the table. Play it. Go ahead. My mother stayed quiet, which was rare. She didn't even try to defend them. That's when I knew, deep down, she already knew the truth. She had let it happen. Maybe even help. I'm giving you one chance, I said, standing up. One chance to make this right before I take it to court. Dean laughed, but it was forced. Haley looked like she was about to cry. My mother? She just said, "You've changed, Samantha." I smiled. No, I finally woke up. What would you have done in that room? If you've ever had to stand alone for what's right, tell me your story in the comments. Like and subscribe to follow the fight for truth and for justice. They called my bluff, so I called a lawyer. They didn't take the deal. After all the evidence I laid out, all the chances I gave them to come clean, they still thought they could bully me into silence. 2 days after the confrontation, I got a text from Dean. If you try anything, it'll get ugly. You don't want to drag the family name through court, Sam. No signature, no explanation, just a threat. And that's when I knew this wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about respect. It was about finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being the forgotten one. The quiet sister who never caused trouble. The one who took care of everything while everyone else lived their lives. So I hired a lawyer. Her name was Marissa Grant Chop, focused and everything I needed. When I told her what had happened, she barely blinked. Unfortunately, this kind of thing happens more often than people realize, she said, flipping through my file. But you've done your homework. That's going to make this easier. I felt seen for the first time in months. Marissa explained that even though the unsigned will wasn't legally binding, it could be used to challenge the legitimacy of the one Dean presented, especially since the law firm listed on it had no record of working with my dad. Forgery, misrepresentation, and intentional interference with inheritance expectancy. Those were the big ones. She filed a petition to challenge the will in probate court and requested a formal investigation. Within a week, Dean and Haley were served. I almost wished I could have seen their faces. The best part? Marissa subpoenaed all communication between my siblings and the estate attorney, including email, phone logs, and drafts of the will. Dean tried to push back, of course. But he didn't count on how much I had saved. I'd kept a record of every moment I spent with Dad in those final months. From care schedules to notes he dictated to me when he was too weak to write. Everything. I wasn't just fighting for some money. I was protecting his memory. The court set a hearing date. That's when the rumors started flying. Family friends began calling me. People who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly wanted to check in. Turns out Dean and my mom had been spinning a story, saying I was unstable, that I was trying to manipulate the estate out of grief. But I didn't need to fight back with words. I had receipts. I had facts. And soon they'd be laid out in front of a judge, courtroom secrets and a twist I never saw coming. Walking into that courtroom felt like walking into a storm I'd spent my whole life avoiding. The polished floors, the heavy silence, the way everyone avoided eye contact until the judge walked in, it all felt surreal. I sat on one side of the room with Marissa, my lawyer, calm and focused. Dean and Haley sat across from us, stiff in their suits, with their own legal team. My mother didn't show. I didn't expect her to. When the judge asked for opening statements, Marissa stood up and delivered it like she'd done it 100 times. Clear, factual, but powerful. This case is not about bitterness. It's about a daughter honoring her father's wishes, while the rest of the family attempted to erase her from his legacy. Dean's lawyer tried to spin it. He claimed my father had changed his mind, that he wanted Dean and Haley to inherit everything because I was emotionally unstable and financially reckless. I wanted to laugh. I'd been paying Dad's medical bills from my own account. Meanwhile, Dean had bought a lake house the same month Dad was diagnosed. Then came the evidence. The unsigned will, the emails between my father and his former attorney, my video recordings. And when Marissa played the clip of my father speaking directly into the camera saying, "Samantha is the one I trust with everything," I felt my throat tighten. Dean's lawyer objected, said it was hearsay, but the judge allowed it because the video had been time-stamped, authenticated, and taken with consent. That's when things started to shift. But the real twist came when Marissa requested phone records from the month after Dad passed, specifically between Dean and someone named Judith Evans. I didn't recognize the name. Turns out Judith Evans was a notary, one who supposedly witnessed my father sign the will Dean had submitted, but under questioning she admitted, on the stand, that she'd never met my father in person. That Dean had brought her the documents and told her, "Just stamp it, it's routine." The courtroom went quiet. That was the moment the case cracked wide open. Forgery, document tampering, witness misrepresentation. It was no longer a question of who Dad wanted to leave things to. Now it was a question of who was willing to commit fraud to steal it. Dean's face went pale. Haley looked like she wanted to disappear. And I sat up straighter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the outsider. I wasn't the background character in someone else's story. I was the one standing in the truth. And the court saw it too. When the truth finally comes out, it changes everything. Tap that like button if you believe in fighting with facts, not noise, and make sure you're subscribed. Because the verdict isn't the end of this story. The verdict and the price they paid. The judge called for a short recess after the notary's testimony. I stepped outside the courtroom and just breathed. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I wasn't carrying the weight of it alone. People had heard the truth, seen the evidence, and most importantly, they believed me. When court resumed, Dean looked like a different person. His arrogant posture had slumped. His lawyer tried to recover, arguing that any inconsistencies were clerical and not intentional misconduct, but the judge wasn't buying it. In his final statement, the judge was firm. It is clear to this court that the submitted will is not only invalid but was manipulated with the intent to deceive and exclude a rightful heir. Just like that, the will was thrown out. And then came the best part, the reinstatement of the estate to probate under intestacy with supporting evidence of my father's intent, heavily favoring me. The judge ordered the estate to be redistributed accordingly, giving me the house and the bulk of the savings, just as my father had planned. Dean? He was charged with presenting fraudulent documents and perjury. The court didn't send him to jail, but he was fined, publicly reprimanded, and barred from being involved in any estate matters going forward. Haley didn't face legal consequences, but her reputation was ruined. Turns out, word spreads fast in Peoria, especially when your social media is full of photos flaunting a lifestyle funded by stolen money. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. I didn't speak to them. I wasn't doing this for public validation. I did it for Dad. And I did it for the version of me that used to sit quietly in the corner, swallowing every insult, every dismissal, every time they made me feel like less. Marissa patted my shoulder and smiled. "You did this, Samantha. You fought smart. You honored him." That night, I walked through the front door of my father's house. The same house I cleaned, cooked in, cried in. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a place full of pain. It felt like mine. I stood in the living room, surrounded by silence, and whispered, "We did it, Dad." There were no cheers, no dramatic music, just peace. And after everything, that was more than enough. It was never about the money. In the weeks after the verdict, I started to rebuild, quietly, intentionally. I moved back into my father's house full-time, not because I needed the space, but because I wanted to honor the life we shared there. I didn't throw everything out or try to erase the past. Instead, I restored what mattered. I framed a photo of him from the last Christmas we had together and placed it on the mantel. Hung the wind chime he used to love by the kitchen window. Every little thing was a reminder, not of loss, but of legacy. The town buzzed with gossip for a while. Some people were supportive, some kept their distance, and honestly, I didn't care. Dean left town not long after the judgment. Word is he sold his real estate business and moved to Nevada. Haley stayed quiet, which was rare for her. She sent me one message. Just one. I didn't know how far he'd go. I'm sorry. I never replied. My mother hasn't reached out. And that silence, it hurt more than I expected. But I've accepted that some people only love you under their terms. When you stop playing the part they cast you in, they no longer see you. And that's okay, because for the first time in my life, I see myself clearly. I started journaling again, volunteered at a local women's shelter. I even started mentoring a young woman who's been dealing with a similar family betrayal. Sharing my story, our story, has reminded me that I'm not alone either. What they tried to steal wasn't just money, it was my voice, my worth, my history. But I took it back, not through screaming or revenge, but through truth, persistence, and every tiny piece of proof they didn't think I had. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked by your own family, cut out, dismissed, silenced, please hear me when I say this. You are not alone. You don't need their approval to be whole. You don't need to justify your place at the table. And if they ever try to erase you from the story, bring your receipts. Because sometimes the quiet one has the loudest truth. And sometimes the one they left out ends up with everything that truly matters. If this story gave you strength, or reminded you that you're not alone, leave a heart in the comments. Subscribe for more real stories of resilience, family, and reclaiming your power. Our voice matters, your story matters, and this channel is here for you.